I guess first of all, welcome to everyone to the club's 101 executive training. Thanks for dialing in on this Monday morning. First of three sessions that we've essentially got planned for you. So look, if you yourself can't make it to all three sessions, hopefully you've got someone else within your club that can dial into one of the other two sessions. So just as a reminder, Club's 101 right now that we're going through all the how-tos of club stuff, and then we've got a session called the Located Experience later this afternoon, which is essentially just going to touch on running face-to-face events and all the, I guess, opportunities, strengths, and challenges that faces and that brings. And then tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., we've also got one on the digital environment as well. So hopefully you can join us for that. A bit of housekeeping, so you can use the filter function in Hopin, so to find the session. So hopefully you did that to sort of navigate here. It is pretty useful to sort of see what you're interested in, and you can toggle that to join into whatever session you're interested in. Check out the booths as well, or the expo. So there's a few prizes and stuff that you can win. So yeah, after this session, have a bit of a play around and a bit of a toggle on, I think it's on the left-hand side there. At the end of this session, we will provide a bit of an opportunity for questions to be asked. So in the meantime, if you like, there should be a Q&A box to the right of screen, so you can pop them in there, and then Rob and myself will endeavour to answer hopefully all of those questions at the end. We will try and whip through this quite quickly. I know in past years, if anyone has been an executive, this sort of session would be quite familiar to you, and you'd probably remember that it was quite a long session. So we're looking to try and condense that and kind of get through it as quick as we can so that we can answer your questions at the end. And then just down the bottom there, you'll see as well that we are recording today's session as well, and it remains on the platform for 2 weeks. So if you've got executives within your club that are working or for whatever reason cannot make today's session, then just let them know that they can still register and log into the Hopin platform and access today's recording along with the other recordings of the sessions at their own time. I should say as well that if I have to pop my little speaker thing up to have a bit of a cough, do forgive me. I'm just still battling a bit of the flu from the last week and a half. So if I have to duck off to the side, just bear with me. So you'll see on the screen there, just some contacts for Geelong and Warrnambool. So you've got myself there, the club support coordinator for Geelong and Warrnambool. We've got Carly Johnson, who you'll probably get some contact from time to time as well. She's our student engagement administrator and had a lot to do with putting today together as well. So thanks to her. I don't think Carly's in this session, but yeah, you'll likely get familiar with her. Lee Emberton as well is our student engagement manager, and who you would have seen at the start of this session before we formally kick things off. Some of you will likely already have had contact with Lee as well, or we'll get to know Lee in the coming weeks and months ahead as well. So Lee is essentially the manager of the student engagement team, of which Rob and myself are a part of. And then down the bottom, you'll see the student council reps. We've got Liam Hall, who's a Geelong Clubs and Societies rep. Spencer is the campus coordinator, and Cassandra is down on Warrnambool as the campus coordinator as well. So if you haven't heard from them yet, you likely will in the coming weeks as well. Over on Burwood's side, we've got Rob's contact details up the top there as well. And then again, down the bottom for council reps, Harishman is the club's rep and Ebony is the Burwood campus coordinator. Rob, do you want to take over?
Yep. Cheers, James. Thank you very much. As James introduced me, I'm Rob G, the club support coordinator at the Burwood campus, and I'm pretty sure out of the 124 people watching, I've had some sort of dealings or interactions with some of you. So for me, nice to meet you guys. Hope to see you on campus soon to get some good work underway for 2022. Yeah, so DUSA clubs, we've got a fair few amount of clubs going across the 3 campuses at Deakin, as we kind of touched on just before. We have a number of clubs in Geelong, Burwood, and I think a few in the Warrnambool campus as well. The numbers are on the screen to the exact numbers of clubs that we do have. So in regards to the participation of club members, they are throughout the campuses and on the cloud campus as well. And I guess the overall purpose of the clubs is basically a learning experience, to have participation with other students in and around the time at university and club members, and enjoy the things that they love doing with like-minded people in the club space. All right, next slide. All right. So with the clubs, there are some set requirements that each clubs need to kind of fulfill throughout the 3 trimesters of the year, and mainly the club constitution is first and foremost the rules and the guidelines of how clubs participate within DUSA and Deakin. It's basically setting out the guidelines of how a club should and shouldn't do, and it is also a bit of an insight in regards to what the ideas behind the clubs are, who makes up the executives in the clubs, and it talks a bit about the committees and who runs the clubs as well. The affiliation agreement is basically the acknowledgement between DUSA and the clubs that they are an active member under DUSA. And that's something that is completed along with the club constitution in the AGM, which is the annual general meeting, which happens around about July. I'm sure a lot of you had been through the AGM this year and had some dealings with me in regards to what's required for the AGM and what's required to do to hold the meeting to kind of get the past executive team handing over to the new executive team for the new year to come. So that's kind of a big minimum requirement of the club for a successful AGM to be held each year. And another thing about the AGM, it's a really important time to kind of hand over the past executives to the new executives, and that handover is really important due to the fact that it does give the club a really good head start in the next year, and so they can hit the ground running to know what they do in terms of setting up events, doing financials and things like that, basically knowing where things are so they don't kind of have to ask around to be a bit stunted when they start. Okay, so next slide, please, James.
Yep. I just might touch on, so as part of the affiliation agreement between the club and DUSA, clubs are expected to run a minimum of at least 2 activities in T1 and then 2 activities in T2. So this doesn't include DUSA's specific events, so things like OFES market days. So just please keep that in mind as well.
Yep, awesome. So yeah, that's a good point. So thanks, James. So basically, it's a whole array of events that we're going to touch on a bit later on. So in terms of what events can be done, the digital session and their located session today, later, and tomorrow is kind of a good insight of what can be done throughout the year. All right, awesome. So in regards to the resources from for the club executives, this, as James touched on, is a good part of it. So today's session, the Clubs 101, which is an overview of how we like to see the clubs and how we like the participation followed in the clubs, and then the located expressions, the located series and the digital series as well does give a good insight of what type of events the clubs can run. The video content, I believe, is going to be housed on Hopin for the next few weeks, I think up to a month. So that's always there if you want to go back and have a look at any of the sessions. So another great resource for the club executives is definitely the website. The website does have, well, it is the go-to for the club handbook, the manuals, and various amounts of forms for events, financials, risk assessments, and how to run events and things like that. Even the constitution and AGM documents can be found on the website, the DUSA website. So basically, it's a great preliminary source of information to look for guidance on everything clubs. Also, the club constitution is a great guideline of what clubs can do and give directions on how the club can model itself and basically carry out operations. That those resources are really handy and readily available. But if all else fails and when in doubt, you can always contact James and myself in terms of information on how and what to do things, how
Yeah, and
and
just
what to
a
do.
quick note as well for everyone listening. So you'll probably start to recognize over the next maybe 12 months or so that we'll be adding to the video content currently available. So at the moment, you see at the bottom there, I've just got that there's club membership, promotion, sponsorship videos. So make sure you get a chance to view them via Hopin, particularly those who are not in attendance today as well. So we'll be adding to those resources over time. Rob just touched on, club resources in general, so I won't sort of go over too much, but definitely make yourself familiar with the club's manual. The club's manual literally is your guide to everything. It sort of summarizes everything that's related to your role as an executive and how clubs operate. You'll notice on the club's resources section of the website too that it's all categorized. So if it's financial forms, event-based forms, it's all sort of there. The forms regularly get updated. So one thing I will say is important is don't just download a copy and then save it to the computer and then just keep using that one, because we do update little things here and there from time to time. So just make sure every time you come to do an event, you just jump on a club resources website, download the latest located form or the online form or the risk assessments, and then fill them out from there, just to make sure you're always using the updated version. In terms of event planning, so this is obviously the big one. So, whether it's online or located events, this is, the main function of what clubs do. So for those that don't know, the located event request package needs to be submitted to Rob or I 4 weeks prior to the event. And that just gives us time to work through the processing of it. And then it also gives time, once it has been processed, for you to adequately promote the event. So that's why there is that 4-week timeline for located events. There's often a little bit more involved with those as well. Whereas for online events, you'll see there that we just need the 10 days notice. It does take us a few days to work through the event approvals. So yeah, allow us, that 3 to 5 days to process them, especially for the located events, which is why it just comes back to being important that you allow that, stick to the notice periods. In terms of what is included within the located event request package, so you've got the event request form, and all of this is accessible via the club resources page. Within the event request form, you've got the budget, you've got the standard DUSA risk assessment, which also has a component for the COVID safe risk assessment. Previously, that was separate. We've now combined the two. And then you've got, if applicable, if you intend to apply for it, you've got the grant application form. And if you're hiring out a room on campus, you've got the room booking form as well. So yeah, touched on risk assessments just sort of very quickly there. Risk assessments are needed for every event that you run, be it online or located. In the online one, we've built it into the actual online request form, so it doesn't need that separate spreadsheet. It's all built there. For located events though, you'll find that there's quite a few sections there pertaining to just general risk management questions. So things like food, alcohol, the venue itself. I alluded to the COVID risk management section as well. That's just under the general. And then, we've got specific risk assessments if it's, camp based, if it's, in open water or sport activities as well. There's separate risk assessments for those, and they can be downloaded via the website too. So essentially, it's just around identifying what the risks are and working through them. I know sometimes it might feel tedious to do that, but it's really important the executives work together to build out, and really consider what risks are facing each event, because each event will sort of propose different risks involved. So it's important that you do spend time building that out and updating it as you draw closer to the event itself. Rob, do you want to take over from this one?
Yeah, all good. So as part of the risk assessment located, the risk assessment form that's on the DUSA website, the COVID risk assessment is built into the risk assessment. I'm saying risk assessment a lot here. It's about halfway down the form. Basically, it has a lot of good information in terms of what to look for when you're planning the event in terms of COVID guidelines before, during, and after the event. It will have information, pre-communication, the types of pre-communication to send out to the executive committee with basic health and hygiene guidelines. Obvious things like, does everyone has a face mask, or is there going to be hand sanitizer provided? And if people are feeling unwell before the event, make sure not to come. Or if people do get sick during the event, the contingencies of what's going to happen. So basically, during the events, it's going to be thinking about who's going to be COVID marshals at the events, and the COVID marshals are checking for those things in the pre-communication planning that the executives do set out. Checking attendances as well, and making sure people are checking into the events if and when possible. So another thing is when planning the events, it's always good to make sure that you get in touch with the venue that you're looking to have the event at, and seek out their COVID safe plan, just to make sure that you know what the venue is doing in terms of COVID safety. And this is a good document that you can share with the club executives, so they can be aware of it before the event takes place. And basically, it's just reaching out to a venue and asking for a COVID safe plan. And majority of venues do know what they are, because they've had to deal with it over the last 2 years. Always another good source of information before planning or conducting or going for an event is just to check the DHHS website, the Department of Health and Human Services, as things do update and change pretty quickly. It's always good to have your eye on that website.
For any major changes, though, we'll always make sure that we communicate that
correct.
to you as executives, to your club email too.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, yeah, so alcohol, of course, you would probably have guessed by now that there's some pretty clear guidelines around alcohol at events, but all basically based around common sense and looking after the safety of club members at events where, I guess, alcohol is present. So it's basically not this. Planning the events is the sole purpose of an event is not to make alcohol the focus of it. Drinking is most certainly accepted, but there really should be accompanied by a few other things like activities, and is there enough food that's provided that kind of does equate to the amount of alcohol that is being served and consumed. Events do require sober monitors if there is going to be alcohol consumption at events, and those sober monitors would be nominated by the club, and they would remain obviously sober for the duration of the event. So if alcohol is consumed, it's going to be carried out at a licensed premises. And in terms of alcohol consumption, drink cards we find are probably the best way to go to serve alcohol, as opposed to an open slather on a bar tab. In regards to grants, club grants, they're not able to be used for the purchasing of alcohol, and buying alcohol can only be done through club funds. In terms of other guidelines around alcohol consumption at events, as always, I guess getting in touch with James and I if there's any uncertainty for it. So room bookings and bookings on campus. So we're happy to assist with providing options for events on campus. We do offer a good range of specialised rooms and basic rooms, such as theatre or rehearsal rooms, dance practice studios, sports facilities as well. And we're happy to provide rooms for club activities. But I guess a case in point here is that learning and teaching does take precedent over club activities when booking out rooms. So it's most certainly due to availability based on the subjectivity of events, not teaching and learning not having first preference over the rooms. So I guess the best way to check for rooms or facility bookings is to get in touch with either myself or James, and we can liaise with the desired room coordinator in terms of getting you set up in that room. And I guess to get yourself the best opportunity to book the room that you're looking for 7 to 10 days before booking the room, getting in touch with us would probably be the best way to go. And seeing, as James said before, that's 2 to 4 week window of when you're planning for events, you're going to be thinking about when the rooms that you want at that stage. So you're probably going to ask us or request from us the rooms that you want to use in advance. So you'll be thinking about that when planning a event or rehearsal or performance on campus. But if you would like specialized rooms or specific rooms, or if you'd like to have a tour or look around specialized rooms or specific rooms, you can get in touch with me on the Build campus, and I'd be happy to meet up and show you around and what we offer.
Okay, cool. Well, one of the main things within events is obviously food as well. So, that obviously brings attractions to the event. So, on campus, there's different ways that obviously this can be achieved. So Deacon's preference is that you use the on-site catering companies. And so you'll see on the screen there that there's a link, and you'll get access to this presentation, of which you'll be able to click on and follow through, and you'll be able to see, what catering companies there are on campus. So that is the preference to use, but you can self-cater as well, but there are requirements around that. So, for example, you need to have somebody with a safe food handler certificate, and it needs to be nationally recognised as well. There's there's a lot of, it's like first aid in a sense. There's so many different providers out there, but you just need to make sure that it is nationally accredited. For, I guess, clubs that are regularly having events where there is food involved, or you are sort of wanting to self cater, you really should have someone, or need to have someone with that safe food handler certificate. Speak to Rob and I as well, because there might be an opportunity to where clubs can use funds to support an executive in getting the actual certification. And then also, if you want to bring an external caterer to campus, there's just a little bit more involved with that process as well. So it's things like us needing to see a certificate of food registration from the company, and a food safety plan and so forth as well. So look, if you do have questions around what's the process and what is available, then certainly get in touch with either Rob or myself. In terms of DUSA themed weeks, this is a great opportunity for you as clubs to link in with what's already happening at DUSA. So if you've been a part of a club in prior years, you will have seen that, via our social media channels, or, on campus, that or even online too, that we do have themed weeks. So down the bottom, there are a couple of examples of what we do. So for this year, Pride Week is happening in trimester 1, week 5. We've got self-care week in week 10, and then for trimester 2, there's You Belong week, week 5, and then again self-care week in week 10. So Rob and I will put out emails closer to the dates of how you can get involved, but essentially it's an opportunity for you to get in front of students again, and not only, I guess, assist DUSA with putting on an event and an experience for students, but obviously promoting your club as well, and getting that opportunity to speak to students and potentially sign up members. And then in the middle there, you'll see Deacon's got some open days coming up later this year as well. So obviously August is quite a way off, but we'll put out communication again later in the year, closer to the date, of how you can get involved in that. But this is more just some FYIs of what's coming. So in terms of financial responsibility, really it's the financial responsibility of all executives within the club to make sure everything's on track. Primarily the treasurer is going to be the one that'll be tracking the club funds. So, they should keep a record of all the income and expenses, and obviously play a big hand in planning, the year ahead for you as clubs. So whether it's obviously events being a big expenditure, but, there's obviously other things as well, like merchandise, promotional materials as well that you might want to purchase as well. They should be sort of right across that and keep a running log of everything. If you do ever require a update of where you're at financially, then contact Rob or myself, and we can send you either an updated spreadsheet of your financials, or we can just quote, how much is actually in your account.
So in terms of the club funds, so we have a bank account at DUSA, and under the bank account lies a ledger of which the club's accounts sit in. So it's not necessarily your own bank account; it's just a ledger under a DUSA bank account where the funds that you receive through ticket sales or purchasing of merchandise or grants that sits in a ledger. All the club expenses, and when clubs are looking at making purchases, they all have to go through James and myself for approval. And again, this is a really time sensitive thing. So given that you're budgeting and planning for a lot of things in events, make sure that the budget gets a lot of due care, because due to the fact that all budget items aren't necessarily approved, the majority of them are approved. So it's best to kind of think about the budget and send it to James and I when doing an event package, so we can have a look over the budget just to make sure that you've got enough money in your club account, and just to make sure that you're not spending all of your money on one big event where you have to kind of make that money last throughout the 3 trimesters during the year. So club funds aren't necessarily a traditional budget item when you've got to use them all of the funds by the end of the year. The budget does roll over, and the club funds do roll over term by term and year by year as well. Another big thing that's happening with the DUSA clubs in terms of finances and money is that the DUSA is going cashless. So ticketing, merchandise sales, etc., should all mostly be done online. In terms of cash or financial transactions at the market days, James, do we have any kind of insights on how we're going to do them?
Yeah, so I'll touch on that in a later slide. But yeah,
Perfect.
essentially everything is going cashless. So I guess as clubs, you're probably well across it already in
Mm.
terms of when you've had events, everything's been ticketed online. But if you, for whatever reason, if you need access to an FPOS machine, for example, then you can borrow that. But we'll touch on that in a little bit. But yeah, just a good FYI though, just to prepare for that. Merch sales are probably one in the past where clubs have sometimes taken cash payments. That all
Yeah.
needs to be done online now.
Cool. Thanks, James. So accessing club funds. So basically, when purchasing things for events, this can be done by you paying for the event, paying for the items or the expenses, or you being able to get an invoice from the company of goods or services that you're requesting for it to be paid through the club funds. So this can be done. Either of these can be done, or whatever's simplest. It's kind of probably easier for clubs to make small expenditures by themselves and then submit the invoices and the receipts in a payment request form, and then we do a reimbursement. But generally for clubs with bigger things, the venue hire or big purchases, what companies do is that they can, it's also merchandise as well. With big amounts of merchandises, companies do send invoices made for the clubs to pay, and then the accounts can make the payment to the company, so you're not out of pocket for $3, $4, $5,000 or however much it would be. So in regards to the reimbursements, on the DUSA website under the resources page is a really important form that I'm sure you're going to be using quite a bit, which is the payment request form, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with the form. Basically, it's a form that will request reimbursements or payment to suppliers. The requirement of that form is that you've got to have signatures of signatures from club members signatures from the executives to authorize the payment. And also be mindful that when you're doing the form and buying services or goods, that the people that you're buying from do have an ABN, because if there's no ABN, you're going to have to fill out another form. So finances are generally taken care of by James and I up until Tuesday, 12 p.m. And then the ideal scenario is that those refunds get put into bank accounts the following Thursday. As I said, two executives need to sign the form, and the form's pretty self-explanatory in terms of what you need to fill out and submit to the form. What's really great is that if all of the invoices and receipts can be attached to the payment request form or included with the email. So sometimes the payment request form is sent, but not the invoices and receipts. It's best that everything gets sent together, so we save time not chasing up things.
Yeah, and just on that as well, if you can use an app like Cam Scanner, so you can save it as, say, like a PDF and send it through. So it just makes it a lot easier as opposed to taking a photo on your phone and then sending it through. So yeah, Cam Scanner is a free app as well. So just make sure you use that instead of taking photos.
Yep, good one. So in terms of club grants, is this your one, James?
Yeah, I can take this one
yep,
on.
cool,
I
awesome.
can take this one. That's fine. So yeah, club grants. So a lot of you would be familiar with it if you've been around in clubland. Essentially, every club has access to club grants that they can apply for based on their tier. And you'll see on the screen there, we've got 3 tiers which are divided up according to however many members you have in your club. So there's 1250 for T1, tier 1 that you get across trimester 1 and trimester 2 and 3 combined, and then 1500 for tier 2 and 1750 for tier 3 if you've got over 150 members. So the tiers are reviewed at the end of week 1 in T1, and then again at the end of week 1 in T2 as well. So essentially, Rob and I do an audit around that time to check how many members you've got, and then you'll be allocated to a tier. So if you do want to find out what tier you're in, then you can feel free to flick us an email, around week 2 of trimester to see where you're at. Otherwise, you do get membership reports where you'll be able to see however many members that you have, and then you'll be able to see where you fit within the allocation. On the club resources section of the website too, you'll find a pretty comprehensive guide and application form, and that's what you will need to fill out and complete and send to Rob and I. If it is for an event, then it should be sent along with the event package. If it's for merchandise, obviously it's a little bit different. In terms of what you can, I guess, use it for, there's many different things you can apply it for. So, I touched on merchandise as being a big one, and obviously events, whether it's venue hire, food and beverage package, or food package as opposed to alcohol within the beverages, but might be learning and development too. So, if there's a professional sort of learning conference that you feel some members and executives can gain from, you could apply a grant for that. Promotional items is probably a big one coming up with the OFES Market Days in about a month's time. So, you might want to put a grant towards a pull-up banner for your club. Otherwise, those typical everyday events and activities that you run are things that you can put the funds to as well. So aside from not being able to use the club grants on alcohol, it's sort of open-ended of what you can use it for. One key thing to note though with the grants is that it's only designed to provide a subsidy. So, if the total expense, for example, is $500, we wouldn't approve a grant that covers the full 500. We might approve a grant for, say, 250, and then the remaining 250 would need to come out of existing club funds. But if you have any questions, then reach out to Rob or myself. There are some additional grants available as well, and this is on the website too, the first one. So there is the DUSA board grant. So if you get to a stage where you've used all your club grant funds, or for whatever reason they can't be used through that club grant process, then you can apply for a board grant. A key thing to note is that Rob and I don't decide the success of your application through a board grant. It goes to student council when they meet, and essentially they'll review the application. Sometimes they might have questions where it'll filter back through to Rob and I, and then we'll obviously pass them on to you and ask for a little bit more detail. Again, the board grants don't cover 100% of the funds, so just make sure when you are, or if you are applying for these, that you show that there's club contributions as well. And then second to that, Deakin University Community Bank funding. I think they've actually changed their name from memory as well. But we've got a link there where you can tap into funding that they provide as well. So it's quite broad. The website will have a little bit more detail, but essentially any event or project that you have in mind that enhances, Deakin as a place to study, there's opportunity to tap into funding there as well. So when we send this presentation slide through, please open up that link and, brainstorm as a team as to potentially, how that could fit into your plans. And then earlier in the year, I've already sent through some information to Geelong-based clubs on a gas trust as well. So hopefully for the Geelong-based execs that are here today, you've already been able to view that. But if you do have any questions, then please reach out, and I can provide more information. And likewise, Rob can on Burwood's side as well.
Awesome.
And just on this one as well, so we do have some student support services available as well. So often it's something that students probably, unless they've needed to use it, maybe are not familiar with. What we've done is we've compiled it on our website. And so there's a whole host of resources that you as students can use. So, things like pertaining to academic matters, but obviously health and well-being and personal matters as well. So really encourage you to get familiar with, what's available to you as students, obviously for yourselves, but in addition to that too, you might get questions from club members asking, where can I go for certain support around this or that? Or you might identify situations in conversation where they might need assistance in a specific area. So, please have a look at this link as well, because there's plenty of content there, and more as a FYI. But if you do have questions, again, reach out to Rob or myself.
Cool. So in terms of OFest, which is fastly coming up, pretty self-explanatory stuff on this slide in terms of when and where it is. So Burwood, Monday, the 28th and 1st of March, between the times of 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Morgan's Walk, which is the main walk through Deakin. Geelong's the 28th February and the 1st of March between 11:30 and 2 p.m. Monday, it's the Waterfront Courtyard. And on Tuesday, it's Warrnambool Ponds, the Union Green. And on Warrnambool, it will be the 11th of March, 4 to 7 p.m. on the Quadrangle. So in terms of clubs doing OFest, I believe that a lot of the clubs have been submitting OFest registration forms, which is fantastic. And I believe that all of them have come in and they look really cool with a lot of good stuff happening. So it's not a traditional event where you need to submit an event package. So submitting the form for the OFest is basically all you need to do. Then you just need to have your merchandise and budget approved by James and myself, and yeah, you're pretty much good to go for those days. I guess a few housekeeping for the day would be no balloons, rubbish to be removed by yourselves at the end of the day, and I guess a good tip would be to look out for the weather, and don't forget to stay hydrated and supply water and snacks to the executive teams. I think each club receives a 3x3 marquee table, and on request power is available, and there are other things that clubs can use, such as popcorn machines, smoothie bikes, and a few other things. So if you have any ideas that or any items that you need, you can reach out to James and myself, and we'll be able to help out. Okay, I think I covered that one as well, James, or did I leave anyone out there?
So probably the only thing to note is obviously in the pandemic times, sanitizer is readily available. So we'll make sure that each table has one of those as well. So, and I guess just the other thing too, probably a little bit different for Burwood on Morgan's Walk and Warren Ponds. Waterfront's a little bit different though, in that part of it will be indoors. So face masks, unfortunately, in a sense, will be required. But we'd also probably encourage it outdoors as well, given the traffic of people that will come through. It's not mandated to wear it outdoors, but we certainly encourage it.
Yeah, and there is an amount of freedom for club members to walk around and hand out things. You're not kind of confined to your area during the day.
And just lastly too, so there's no homemade or baked goods permitted for the market days.
Yep.
So please stick to pre-packaged food or individually wrapped items. And I think, going through and having a look at all the forms or the booking forms that have been sent through, it looks like pretty much everyone is kind of sticking to that, which is cool.
Yep, same with mine. Is mine or yours, James?
This one is yours.
All right, so tips for O-Fest. So dress up in fun clothing. As a lot of the submissions for O-Fest had come through, a good majority of people are thinking about the goodie bags and what's going in the goodie bags. And as James said, it's individually wrapped, pre-made things, no baked or home cooked things. So basically, all of these things do get handed out to members. So I guess you're kind of wanting to be a bit energetic and bright to kind of engage with potential new club members on the day, because there will be quite a lot of students passing through the area. Signage, you can have tablecloths and banners to promote your club and activities, which is encouraged. Wearing name tags is also a good thing as well. And I guess, yeah, it's all about the promotion of the club and trying to attract bright new faces or re-sign continuing smiling members. Sponsorships, any materials that you're going to display or give away in terms of sponsorships must be kind of looked at by James and myself in terms to get a not a tick of approval, but just basically to make sure that it's mutually or it's beneficial to the club without selling yourself short. So we want the clubs to be able to promote their activities and include sponsors that are kind of likened to the mantras of the clubs, but we don't want clubs to kind of have contracts with hidden clauses that do make them bound to doing things throughout the year. But I think a few clubs already have approached myself in terms of sponsorships with or partnerships with companies that have given items for clubs to hand out, which is really good. So in terms of signing up members, James, is this your one?
Yeah, I'll take this one. I guess
Cool.
one thing I will say, if we have any new execs in the room that are, really foreign to the concept of what is market day, jump on the DUSA Facebook page, have a look at the photos, and I think you can have a look at the albums, and you'll find the club's market day folders there from previous years, and that'll give you a bit of an idea of what it looks like, and that might give you some ideas for how you can either dress up or how you can make your club store look attractive and inviting so that students come by and at the very least want to have a chat and hopefully sign up as a member, which brings us to signing up members. So as we mentioned earlier, going cashless, everything needs to be done online via the DUSA website. So what we recommend is either bringing multiple laptops or whether it's iPads that are fully charged. Otherwise, you can encourage students to sign up using their own phone, which again in pandemic times is probably the preferred method, as it just reduces those high touch points when you do sign up the members. If you do use laptops to sign them up, then just make sure that people are sanitizing their hands, potentially even, having an exec fill out the details as you're going through it with them, aside obviously from the payment page. using Google Chrome as well. So, in the past, there's been some issues with using different browsers. So we recommend using Google Chrome. You can create things like QR codes as well and print them out, stick them on your page, and then link it to your club-based page on the DUSA website. If you do that, just make sure that you don't link it directly to the payment page, just because I think it marks up, that process each time you come to do it. It wipes out the one that you did before it. So if you do link it, just link it to your club page, and then they can click, or you can click on the Join Now button. So all the membership money that is generated from the market days will then be transferred into your account or your ledger within around a week or just over. So keep a lookout for that. And then, as I've touched on briefly before, you'll receive a membership report every Friday morning. If you need one earlier for whatever reason, then Rob and I can send one through to you. So just flick us an email. Again, everything cashless. So that includes things like merchandise. So if you plan to sell merchandise, then again, I'd recommend, using something like Try Booking. You've got QPay, Eventbrite, Humanitix. There's no shortage of online ticketing platforms that you can use. So make sure that you're selling your merchandise via those platforms. Let Rob and I know that that is the plan, and then once those funds have been generated and sit in that online platform account, they can be transferred across to DUSA. And for example, you could include a QR code on your stall, of which links them to that page. So you can still have the merchandise there on the day and hand it over once they go through that process, but it's just not done, via cash. Okay, in terms of planning for 2022, so hopefully some of you have already kicked into overdrive and you're, starting to plan for the year ahead. It's, I think it's a pretty exciting time when, January, February rolls around, and it's, you can sit down and think about how you want to shape your year as clubs. Obviously, it's been a challenging couple of years for clubs, but look, we're optimistic that things are going to get better and better as we roll on. And in recent times, obviously there hasn't been as many restrictions in terms of what clubs can do. There's certainly guidelines, of which we'll go through in the located and online sessions. But yeah, start planning. You can submit your event packages as far ahead of time as you like. Just make sure again that it sticks to the timelines. But if you've got an event coming up in 3 months that you want to submit now, go for it. Important to think about backup options if your event could be impacted by COVID. So whether that is a government enforced restriction, which seems unlikely at this point, but we can't rule anything out. What is potentially more likely is a venue maybe needing to close because they haven't got staff. Potentially they've all, obviously tested positive. That has happened. So just make sure you've got backup options and check your contracts as well when you are going through that process. And I guess as part of that event process, any agreements or contracts need to be sent through to Rob and myself to look over unsigned before we give the tick of approval, and we can help assist with looking out for those type of things. Making sure that you're having a look at what you can run from both a digital and located sense is important too. So I think there's advantages of both, of which we'll cover in later sessions, but definitely don't neglect one or the other. I think it's to your advantage that you can sort of shift between both, and even backup options might be having an event online if it gets cancelled. So one to keep in mind. The other thing is just brainstorming fundraising or sponsorship opportunities as well. If you do have questions, then Rob and I are happy to assist. There's also other staff members that might be able to help assist in that sense as well. Some of our staff, our sponsorship staff, potentially can help link you in with companies too, or help prepare sponsorship proposals too. So we're always here to help, but yeah, really encourage you to get on the front foot and start planning. So this is a bit of a to-do checklist, I guess, prior to OFest. So you need to be, as an executive, you need to be a DUSA member. That can be bronze, silver, or gold, and you can sign up via the website. you need to be a member of your club. Hopefully, you should be a member of your club. Sometimes, obviously, your membership will lapse and you'll need to renew. So just keep a lookout for any emails that come through. Rob and I do an audit soon as well. So we'll let you know if that needs to be done. Sending through, any of those proposed sponsorship agreements to Rob and I, as well as promotional items, as well as your budget too for OFES. So make sure that gets done over the next couple of weeks before the market days roll around, so that Rob and I can approve those two things. Jump on the DUSA website and your club page and make sure everything's up to date. So your club blurb, the join page is working, that the membership prices are correct. If anything needs changing, make sure you flick an email across to Rob and myself, and then we can update that for you. One thing to note is that events won't be processed during that O-week period as well. So please keep that in mind. If you need to know how much money is in your account, as we said earlier, please get in touch and we can certainly update you on that too. If you aren't getting the membership report on Friday mornings as well, make sure you get in touch. So you should be getting that every Friday morning. It gets sent to your dedicated club email address. But I know that sometimes clubs will, change emails. If that ever does happen, then make sure you just let us know so that we can update our records, update the website and our back end so that you're getting all that information.
Awesome.
Questions and comments?
So I guess if we have a look in the question and answer section, James, there's a good amount of questions in there. So what should we do in regards to answering? We'll have a go at answering the majority of them.
You can call out the questions and
there's in the question. Yeah, cool. All right.
So for example, I'm just trying to load up mine now. So Emily's actually asked, are we openly allowed to accept people's time on a volunteer basis? So for OFES, it should be just club executives. If for whatever reason executives cannot make it, then if you've got club members that are volunteering their time or so forth, that's fine. But yeah, for your events, if you've got volunteers helping out, that's fine. That's not a problem.
So Douglas says, is there a difference between planning activities and planning events? For example, doing weekly movie screenings as activities versus doing a specialized located movie screening at a proper cinema. So both of those would be put through as a event package. So there's no real differentiation between doing kind of like a bigger event and a smaller event. If you're thinking if it needs an event package, probably a good rule of thumb is to do an event package just to let James and I know what the club's doing and see if we can add any advice or help out with any of the planning as well. So yep, definitely do an event package for a weekly screening or a screening at a cinema.
So I've got another question that asks, is there a minimum number of executives required to be at the stall? So no, in previous years that was capped due to capacity limitations, but no, there's not this time around. I'm just trying to open. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, all good. Did you want me to go to the next question, or you?
My browser's quite slow, which is why I'm struggling a bit here. But the other question follows on is, what do we do in circumstances where only one exec is available? So if there's only one exec available, my encouragement would be to reach out to your member base and ask if anyone can help you out on the day. So, the market days are really to be able to just talk about the club, have a casual chat with the students. They'll be wanting to know a little bit about your club and what you do. So, if a club member can help out, that's perfect.
Awesome. So Emily says, do we get to choose our specific stalls, or we just choose on the day? So whatever stall is not taken. So basically what's happening now is that James and myself are kind of like looking at all of the submissions that we have got from the clubs for the OFest and the market days. And in the next couple of days, we'll be working with the events officer to kind of plan out where everybody's going to go on the day and how the day is going to be set up. And that will be communicated back to the clubs, I guess, a week or so before the actual dates of the market day.
Typically on the day itself.
On the day? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so typically, I know sometimes it's done a little bit differently between Burwood and Geelong, but typically on the day itself, Emily, there'll be a stall where, for example, Rob will be there and he'll be able to tell you where you're based. On the stalls themselves as well, we usually have the club name printed out so you can find your way.
Yeah, also with the club showcase, is that probably worth touching on in terms of the clubs being set up in and around the gym and that area? That will be a pre-chosen spot for the clubs, or is it getting there and then setting up on basis of first come, first serve?
Yeah, so as I said, sometimes that's done a little bit differently between the two campuses. So obviously, Rob and I work with different event coordinators, but my understanding, at least I know from Geelong's standpoint, yeah, there'll be a stall there where you can find out where you're based. So you'll be pre-allocated, and then on the day you just find out, where you are, and then you obviously go to the stall and you can begin setting up.
Cool.
Emma's also asked, do we have to request permission before accepting sponsorship? So yes. Again, if anyone hasn't seen the sponsorship video that we've put together along with a couple of the others, please go and have a look at those. I'll have to maybe potentially find out from Lee where they are sitting, but that'll explain the process. But yes, before you sign off on any sponsorship, it does need to be approved by Rob and myself. So please send through the unsigned sponsorship agreements to Rob and I, and we can work through that with you.
Awesome. Giselle says, how many students are allowed to be present at the stall at the same time? We would probably encourage the executive team to be there and a few committee members to be working in the stall. So
it'll be different for every club, but yeah, I mean, obviously, having say 4 is better than one.
Yeah.
But each club situation might be a little bit different. Do we require QR codes at our stall? You don't require them, but it can be advantageous. So as I just sort of mentioned in the presentation before, you can have a QR code that links to your club page on the DUSA website, so they can sign up, or you could have QR codes linking to, say, if you're selling merchandise to the online platform, or if you've got an event coming up, you might have a QR code on the flyer as well that links. So make use of them. I think we've all sort of become accustomed to using QR codes. I think they're pretty useful.
Ruby, I think the question was answered from Giselle's question. So Charlotte, the maximum amount the grant money can subsidise, or look, it's a case-by-case basis really. One way that the grant money can be used to subsidise costs at an event is based a lot around ticket sales. So for example, if you start an event package and say that you need X amount of grants to cover X amount of expenses, sometimes we'll say we'll have a look at how ticket sales goes. So if you sold a lot of tickets, probably that's great because it's going to cover a lot of the expenses, and so we can probably issue a smaller grant. But if ticket sales are a little bit lower than expected, we could probably increase the grant amount as well. So as James said before, if you're going to have an event that's $500, we probably wouldn't give a $500 grant. We would generally aim towards giving around about half of a grant money towards half of the club funds that are contributed by the club.
And obviously those grant funds are predicated on what tier you fall in and how much you have access to as well. But yeah,
Yep.
any individual questions, feel free to send them through. Deshawn's asked, will the slides be sent through? So Lee's answered yes, which is correct. Daisy's asked around itemised receipts. So yes, really important to get itemised tax receipts, not the FPOS receipts. So the itemised tax receipt, should have information such as the ABN, the company details, a description of the goods or the services, and the GST charged as well. So always make sure with anything that it's an itemized receipt, not an FPOS receipt.
Also, James, the question says, as in individual drink purchases, or would it be okay to just have an overall bar tab total receipt for the venue?
Sorry, I'm just trying to load. I'm just following along.
The same question that you just answered, I think, has a bit
Is
about.
there a requirement for treasurers to provide? So yeah, you don't have to provide an update to us because we have access to that, Deshaun. But if you ever need it, we can send it through. And yes, just the itemized stuff, Daisy. Sorry, I was reading the question ahead. Yes, definitely make sure it's always itemized so that it has everything on it. So, which if you get the proper tax receipt from any place, it should always itemize, including for those individual drink purchases.
Deshan also says, regarding club budgets, are they audited by DUSA? Is there a requirement for our treasurer to provide a trimester-based updated ledger to DUSA?
So I just touched on that one before,
did
Rob,
you?
quickly.
Okay,
Yeah, I sort of went ahead trying to
I
scroll.
thought
It's
you
sort of
answered the
there's
one
a bit of a
before.
delay in my scroll, which is why, if anyone's wondering,
Yeah,
it's
all
not
good.
fluid. But yeah, already answered
That's cool.
that
So
one.
Douglas said, what ticketing host would you suggest for cashless ticketing for events? QPay is probably the one that most of the clubs do use.
I might
For
get in
the
trouble for saying this. I actually prefer try booking. We've had some issues with
yeah,
QPay,
try booking, QPay. Yep, either or.
so I'd say try booking. I know clubs use Eventbrite and some use
Ticketek even.
Humanitics. I don't think Ticketek. Yeah, that's
Okay.
mainly for sort of bigger organizations. But yeah, have a look at try booking or Eventbrite, I would say. Another question has come through. How will we know if our safe food handler certificates are nationally accredited? So on the website, if it's done online, on the website, it should state it, or the certificate itself, there should be a little nationally recognized logo. So yeah, if you've done it through DUSA, that's perfect. Do you want to answer Douglas's question there, Rob?
Yeah, with room bookings, would the requirement for events be the same with activities, or would that be the club to communicate with on-campus stuff? Yep. So yeah, great question, that one. So what happens with the room bookings? It's an additional form that clubs fill out and that is submitted to me, and then I liaise with the coordinator that books the room, and then they send back a confirmation of the booking, and then I send it back to you, which then shows the booking terms and conditions for the room that you have chosen. So yes, the room booking form is also a form that can be found on the DUSA resources page, and when filling out the form, it does need to be done every time a room is needed to be booked.
So the Deakin Nursing Ed Midwifery Society has asked what paperwork is required for market stores during OFest. So really that's just getting approval for your budgets and for your promotional items. So as I think Rob touched on in the slide itself, you don't have to actually send through the located form. That's okay. It's mainly just getting approved your budgets and your promotional items. So if you've got flyers and that type of thing, if you are ordering banners or anything of that nature, then make sure that Rob and I have cited those, and obviously your budget as well. So please send those across at least a week or so before the market days themselves, but you can send it through as soon as you've confirmed them.
Awesome. Well, look, I think pretty much that's bang on time for all that we've got to do with the Club 101 session. Thank you everybody for joining. Yeah, really looking forward to continuing working with you throughout this year. Any questions, get in touch with James and I, and we both really encourage you to attend the next sessions coming up, and hopefully we'll see you in the afternoon with our located roundtable chat. So look, thank you very much everybody, and yeah, good luck with it all.
Thanks, team. Hopefully see you at 3 o'clock. But otherwise, yeah, look, if we haven't got to all the questions, we do apologise. Please send them through to Rob and myself. I know looks like there's a couple there that are still existing. Can we apply for more than one grant? Yes, you definitely can. Repeated events weekly. So you just put in all the dates in the one event package there, Heidi. and that's fine. You don't need to send one for every new one, so that's fine.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you have any other
So I
questions,
think
you
that's
can
everything.
email us, and we'll happily talk you through anything that needs to be done. Awesome.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your
Thanks,
day.
Brown. All right. Bye.